Earlier this week, Donald Trump canceled his planned speech on January 6th. Thanks God, because that would have been a horrible, horrible idea. But to mark the occasion, some of his supporters decided to make a pilgrimage to his home in West Palm Beach and go and sort of gather outside, show their support for him. Now, they are disappointed that he made the decision that he did. They wanted him to speak. They want him to announce that he's gonna be president in a week. They're crazy. So they're a little bit disappointed that he didn't do that. One of them, an organizer for the protest we're talking about here, says, "We still consider President Trump our president. What's gone on this past year is a joke. This is not our country, our planet, or our reality. We are floating in the ether." I don't know what they think. They still believe that he's gonna become president. They believe some crazy things. They also believe one particular crazy thing, which is anything that Donald Trump tells them, because apparently they were told he would come out and see them. I mean, after all, they traveled all the way there to go see him. He doesn't have a job, so he's certainly got time, but he stiffed them. They were told that he was going to come out and say hi to them, but he never showed. So they just flew their flags and thankfully for our purposes talked into cameras, and we're gonna play some of that video for you. But before we get to the first video though, I do want to just remind you, this is hardly the first time that Donald Trump has made a very specific claim to them and not come through. This is their anniversary gathering for January 6th. And remember that while lots of terrible stuff happened on January 6th, one thing that didn't happen was Trump making good on his promise to participate in the march and the riot. He said he was gonna do it, and he didn't do it because it involved physical activity. I don't know why at this point they would believe anything he says. But regardless, we do want to find out a little bit about what they think about the country and about the world. So let's take a look at a clip of one of the protesters.
How about the 13 elite bloodlines that have robbed us all blind all our life and bamboozled us all our life? And our life has been nothing but a lie. But we stand here in truth, in his light, for what's right.
Okay, I think normally when people say in his light, I think they mean God. I'm fairly certain there he means Donald Trump. But Cenk, I know that this 13 elite bloodlines thing interested you. So tell me what you found out about that.
Yeah, I looked into it because I'm like, look, anytime they start talking about bloodlines, etc., it's gonna devolve into anti-Semitism. Okay, write it down in stone. So, and look, I'm gonna partly blame Democrats for this in a second. So if you're corporate Democrat or mainstream media, buckle up, brace for impact. But so first of all, are the Republicans detached from reality? Of course. Only 20% of Republicans believe that Biden was legitimately elected. So the great majority of Republicans are completely detached from reality. So we're not one of those shows that picks a side and only does marketing for them. We tell you the whole truth, okay? So now, what are the 13 bloodlines? Well, I was relieved to find out all the families on the list were not Jewish. Were some of them? Of course, right? But not all of them were. I was like, hey, that's a slight win, right? The Merovingians was there. I think they watched probably a little bit too much Matrix, but the main, of course, person that and family that they thought was in charge of the whole planet is the Rothschilds, which is a very old school anti-Semitic conspiracy theory about how they secretly run the world. So wait a minute, this is all Republican lunacy. What does this have to do with Democrats? Well, look, the reality is there are only a few number of people that have a massive amount of wealth in this country. What was it, 5 people now have the equivalent of 50%, or the bottom 50% of America, the same amount of money. It's just, it's stunning the income inequality that's true in America. And by the way, I think those top 5, none of them are Jewish in reality, in the real world, right? And then that class of people then give money to politicians. They're the donor class. They are not connected in any way through religion, race, ethnicity, or any of that. They're connected through another color, green, the color green. But Democrats in the mainstream media say, nope, no, that's not true. First of all, Democratic leadership thinks income inequality is no big deal at all. They just helped to kill $15 minimum wage legislation. So they, from not giving a damn to income inequality all the way through to completely denying reality that donors control politicians. Well, guys, let's be honest. They're living in a completely different reality too. That everyone else on planet Earth thinks that the politicians care about the millions of dollars that they're getting from donors. Once the media says, no, black is white and white is black, and donors don't have any effect. And Nancy Pelosi, for example, has raised $1 billion. $1 billion. And the media says, no, that doesn't affect her at all. Well, that leads to people looking for solutions. And so it makes it much easier to herd the right wing into, well, you see, that isn't true. You know that isn't true. So you know what the real answer is? The 13 bloodlines and the Illuminati and Jews and etc. And that's why we're in this dark, dark place in American history right now.
Yeah. Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, okay, first and foremost, Trump not showing up for all these people, I think it's hilarious. It's JFK Jr. all over again, and so I love it. I'm here for it. Thank you, Donald Trump, for doing that. But seriously, these conspiracy theories thrive because people feel like they don't have control. Because I mean, look at Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos through Amazon controls an economy within Amazon that is the size of a country in and of itself. So yeah, none of us have control over how Amazon does things, right? It's not like a democracy. So people are correct in feeling like they don't have some degree of control. And the Democrats are just saying, no, don't you see everything's all hunky-dory, this is wonderful. And then so instead of having a critique of capitalism and income inequality and all of the real material problems, money in politics, they instead just decide to focus on lizard people and just dive into the deep end.
100%. It's one of the most frustrating things about these conspiracy theories is that some of them are just totally deranged, have no relation to reality. Some are almost like a foggy mirror version of reality. Like the idea that 13 specific elite bloodlines control everything is absolutely nonsensical. The idea that the wealthy control a lot of things is true. It's just not. It's not as clean and glossy as the conspiracy theory version. The idea that the rich have too much control over the economy and politics is objectively true, but how they exercise it, their relationship to different sectors of American society and the different political parties is more complex. And so what the conspiracy theorists need is an easy explanation. They are largely driven by anxiety about a chaotic world, and they require simplistic explanations. Even if in theory, you could actually care about this sort of thing. And also often, their conspiracy theories are oddly detached from the best possible evidence for them. Like the QAnon people don't care at all about the actual elite pedophiles that have been discovered in high profile in the past few years, even though that is the best description of what they believe to be true. This guy with the 13 elite bloodlines, is he constantly attacking Elon Musk, or as Cenk mentioned, Jeff Bezos or any of the actual rich people? No, it's all these fake ones from books from 75 years ago. It's all nonsense. And well, it gets into other areas as well. So let's show you a little bit more. This is a woman talking about American democracy at that protest.
What is the difference between a democracy and a republic?
A democracy is mob rules. A republic is freedom, liberty, justice, all of that. The people rule.
That's no. And honestly, I was actually a TA for poli-sci courses, so I get to say, no, you fail. You did not pass that test. There are distinctions between democracy and republic, and America does have components of both. There are advantages and potential negatives to both systems, or any sort of combination of the two systems. But it is not that one inherently has more freedom and liberty. There's a certain sort of freedom and liberty to the mob rule that she pretends all democracy is. Let's take a look at January 6th. They were pooping on the floors. Those are people who felt very free. But anyway, Cenk, what do you think about her political explanation?
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't have to go as deep as the difference between democracy and a republic. She said democracy is mob rule, and a republic, the people rule. Wait, what? no, if anything, in a democracy, the people rule more. The republic puts a layer between the people and ruling. So, but again, none of this has to mean anything. Words no longer have meaning. And again, I blame some of this on the establishment. I mean, how long have they divorced words from their actual meaning in Orwellian ways? You know, when they allowed Dick Cheney to change the word torture to enhance interrogation, when they started calling anyone they opposed terrorists, and now dictators in places like Kazakhstan, as we'll cover later in the program, whenever there's a rebellion where people are seeking freedom, they call them terrorists. So since words have no meaning, she doesn't have any idea of the distinction between a republic and a democracy, nor does she care. She's just been told, and this is the most important part, guys. Now right-wingers are being told that a democracy is a bad thing. Now, why do you think their leaders are training them to say democracy is a bad thing? Do you think it's because they're going to be in favor of democracy? No, they're going to be in favor of ending democracy, and they're not going to replace it with a republic. They're going to replace it with authoritarian rule, and guess what they're going to call it? A republic. And then she's going to think it's freedom when it's the exact opposite.
Yep. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, like, because here's the thing: within United States history, there's been mob rule, and when I say mob rule, I don't mean the tyranny of the majority that people talk about. I mean literal mobs. During the Reconstruction era, there were elections that were literally rigged by the Ku Klux Klan. There were elected officials that were killed and driven out of town by the Klan, and that was mob rule. And so, what these Republicans really want is they just want to return to that. That's what they want, because what they're scared about democracy, what they're scared about democracy is the same reason why they're stripping away voting rights from people and purging people from voting rolls. They're just racist, and they don't want people of color to be able to vote. They don't want people of color to be represented in Congress, and they especially don't want, like, poor folks and poor people of color to be represented in Congress. And so when there seems like there might be some demographic changes or some political changes that, maybe more left-wing ideas get more popular, that's when they start storming the Capitol, and they're trying to quite literally bring back the actual mob rule that existed in the United States.
Yeah, I gotta say something about that, because Ben is so right, and so glad he said those things. First of all, I mean, I forgot, you know what mob rule is? January 6th. That's literally mob rule. It was a literal mob that stormed the gates and was chanting about hanging Mike Pence and killing Nancy Pelosi and killing their own vice president. It doesn't get any more mob rule than that. And I guarantee you that lady cheered it on. Guaranteed. You know what else was mob rule? The Tulsa race massacre, right? Greenwood district. And so where they literally had a mob of white, again, always right wingers, go and murder all the successful black people in town and burn the place down. That was Black Wall Street back in the day, okay? And so, and that's their guys, that's right wingers. And so they've always been in favor of mob rule, and that's why a democracy bothers them, because they're now feeling like, oh no, we might get outvoted. And we were never interested in democracy. We were only interested in power, whether we got it through mob rule, democracy, it didn't matter. But there's no way we're giving up power without resorting to violence first. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.